welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. All right, so now we're going to dive into our discussion with Heather. So welcome, Heather, to the Glow Up Girl podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. So why don't you start by telling our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
So I am the co-founder and CEO of an organization called WNORTH. And WNORTH is a global network for women who are aiming for or already on a senior executive leadership track. And we are a membership as well as a conference. And we have a mission to elevate more women to positions of power and leadership, which will result in elevating the families that they lead, the communities they live in, and the teams that they work with.
Yes. I love that. That's so awesome. And it's so needed in our world today for women. There's so many of us who are, in corporate positions and trying to move up that ladder, right? Trying to break that glass ceiling, as we often say. So that is awesome. Now, let me ask you this question. Obviously, you have been functioning during, what we thought, we're in a pandemic. We thought, we're coming out of the pandemic. And then we see that we are still operating, learning to live daily in a pandemic. With your business and your organization, how have you had to pivot and adapt? And what are you doing now? How are you dealing with those challenges that still may arise from the pandemic?
Yeah, so our company, so I'm also the founder and CEO of an event company, Bluebird Strategy. And, our organization, much of what we did before the pandemic was in-person events. Mm-hmm. So when the pandemic came in March 2020, obviously with everything we pivoted online, but it was a huge part of our business. So for the last, I'd say almost 2 years, we have been doing everything predominantly virtually. We have done a couple smaller in-person events, and we've just started to resume our in-person chapter city member meetings, which are limited to, in some cities, 10 people, in some cities, 20 people, and we have a vaccination requirement. So we're slowly seeing our events starting to return, but there's a lot of material that we still offer virtually. Mm-hmm. And, a really important part of that, and we actually started our membership as a global virtual opportunity for networking back in 2018. Mm-hmm. So we have had monthly workshops via Zoom and networking events via Zoom for a couple of years, even before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And we will continue to do that. Because what's also happened, as you are probably familiar, is people have moved away from some of the major cities. So, if we have 10 chapter cities right now, but for those who have maybe moved a little bit farther into the countryside, or they've moved farther away from other city hubs, we have remote workers. And those remote workers still need to build a network and still need to gain leadership skills and learn what they need to get themselves to that next level of leadership. And so we will remain a hybrid offering for people with in-person as well as virtual experiences for people to level up their leadership.
Awesome. Now, did you see your membership numbers grow during the pandemic? Because everybody, which was, for everything that the pandemic has taken from us, it has also given us this space and this opportunity to really figure out what we want. What do we want to be doing with our lives? And I just love it because I love that people were just exploring and discovering what they wanted. So did you see a lot of women coming to your organization during that time?
We did. So when we went into kind of lockdown, we started offering a lot of free events, which definitely built up our brand awareness. And we, in fact, tripled the size of our membership at the beginning of the pandemic. And the other thing that we started to do, which grew our base, is we now offer 10% of our memberships that we have as scholarships to women of color. So I started to reach out to my network and ask for nominations. And we grew the diversity of our membership as well, which was really important to us. And so, yeah, we have definitely seen this, there is a silver lining to this virtual space in that which may have been more of a regional organization. We have strived to be global, but it was when everyone went online that we really took off. So I think it's definitely been a plus for us in terms of being able to reach women across North America without any geographical barriers.
So what are some of the events, like what are some of the topics that you generally cover with your events, and what type of information can women find online?
Yeah, so we definitely like to blend the professional development and the personal development. Our workshops, we've got a workshop this month. It's around leveraging empathy as a leader. And next month, we're talking about negotiation strategies, and that using that not only for work, but negotiation at home in your personal life. So we definitely like to blend the two. And as we've seen with the pandemic, their work and life are very much blurred these days. So those are some of the topics that we have. And I want to clarify also that because our materials are around leading and stepping into leadership, that we appeal to not only women in corporate roles, but entrepreneurs who are scaling to that level where they're suddenly maybe a solopreneur, and then they find themselves in a position where they have a team of 10, and suddenly they're in the C-suite. They're in the C-suite of a small organization, and you need to sort of network with other like-minded women who may be leading teams like you. So those are some of the things that we are offering to our community.
That's awesome, because they're needed on both sides, and being on both sides of those coins myself, in the professional space, and then having a business. I think that when you are a professional and you work, within a corporation, and when you have your own business, your mindset has to be very different, right? So, I try to take the approach of like being entrepreneurial in my day job, just like I am in my business, but the mindset has to shift to be able to lead, because when we're solopreneurs, we're often doing all the tasks. Like you're trying to do the thinking, the planning, the doing. And at some point you have to be able to move away from so much of the task work and delegate to others. And like you said, you start to establish this team, and you have to begin to like elevate the way you think in order to scale the business up and grow.
Definitely. And when I started WNORTH, one of the things I'm similar to you, Kara, because I have had my event company for 11 years, but I also worked for corporate Fortune 500 company, and I sort of side hustled for a few years. And so when I went looking for a network where entrepreneurs and corporate women, came together, I had a really hard time finding that space. And so a lot of the events were really geared towards corporate women, or they were really geared towards entrepreneurs. And so I built WNORTH with intention to blend those two, with a base understanding that we were coming to learn to lead.
Yes, I love that. And I just love the whole concept, because I think it's so important. So often women were just not given the same opportunities, unfortunately, in our workplaces to develop those leadership skills. And we have to go outside. We often have to go out, and it's great to have an organization like yours that can help you at leadership at both sides. That's really important. And you're right, that doesn't exist generally out there in the world. It's either you're either going to be an entrepreneur who's trying to manage a business and you're going to get this, or either you're going to be a professional woman and you're going to get this. So to have those blend, because just to make those connections amongst people, I mean, it's just awesome, because I always feel like when you are in a corporate job, you have to approach it like it's your business. I mean, I still like the job I do every day. It's like I'm showing up. I'm a business owner at my job. I own this part of the business. Marketing is the business I own. And it's my responsibility to, grow that and to elevate, for others and to help, grow people inside of my team. And it just, and especially, and I think it's good too, because when you look at different industries that people may work in, if you work in, an industry that may be more male, predominantly male men, you may not get those same learning opportunities. And I think something, even the course that you guys are offering this month, talking about empathy. Oh my God. Empathy and emotional intelligence. Like those are just things that often are like over the head in certain organizations. And so I just want to applaud you for what you're doing. I think it's awesome.
Thank you. And one of the inspirations as well is, with some of these internal training programs at large organizations, which, I was introduced to, they are mostly leadership taught from a male lens in many senses. And so for me, it was really important to create a space where we were teaching those leadership skills from a gendered lens, from a female's perspective. Just a very simple example. I just recently wrapped doing a energetic time management for working mothers mastermind inside of the membership. And we brought in a guest speaker to talk about cycle syncing as it relates to your professional role and your job. And, many of the women on the call had never heard of this concept of, there's certain times of the month where you were better to be, you should be negotiating when you're ovulating because you're attractive and you have this energy. And then there's other times of the month where you should be using your analytical side of your brain. And so I think there was this moment where everyone on the call, which in this particular cohort was predominantly in large professional and corporate roles, they sort of took a step back and they were like, no one's ever talked about this before. And so I think that's where it's really important to have this space where things are presented a little bit differently.
Right. Yep. Yes. And that is actually pretty fantastic to hear. I interviewed somebody maybe like 2 months ago about cycle syncing, and she talked about that. And I think that it's just not something like I wasn't aware, of like those different times, like, things are happening with your body. Right. But first she broke it down like by the weeks. And then it was like, oh, and you should do it. And she sort of applied the lens to like daily life, as to things that you should be doing, or maybe try doing this, do less of this. But I definitely think that is so, it's intriguing to think about it in the business sense. And yeah, wow, I love that. So Heather, what advice or tips could you give anyone out there who may be listening, who may be in an organization and they have women that they want to support within the organization? What can they be doing now to help build women as leaders?
So I think one of the most important things about women in and leadership and women like aiming for leadership positions is finding some community and some peer mentorship. And one of the programs we developed inside of WNORTH is our Leadership Mastermind program. This program is mentorship with 5 other women that are on the call, like a group mentorship, as well as it's led by a facilitator and executive coach. I believe of all the different types of membership or mentorship that are out there, that this is a really strong way that we can support women who are in that kind of mid-career point where maybe they have a number of external pulls, whether it's children, looking after parents, just life in general, and being able to have that community to talk through their ambition, their lack of ambition, the challenges that they're having. And sometimes that space is not always available within the company. A lot of our members will come from big companies, but sometimes they'll come from small to medium-sized companies that maybe they're the only woman at the table, or maybe they're the only woman at their level at work. And so I believe that one of the core ways we can support women right now, and I wrote about this I wrote an article for Forbes called "Don't Fail Your Women Leaders Now." And it says, don't block your employees from making external connections. There's this trend that I started to see kind of more in the large organizations, but it was and especially now with the, the Great Resignation and people changing jobs, corporations are scared that if they network externally, they're going to lose them. And the reality is that regardless as to how great your programs are in leadership development, if they can't find the connections and the mentorship that they're looking for within the company, then you should look at some organizations. And I'm not the only one in this space, but we are sort of niche down into leadership. But if you are looking to support and nurture one of your, especially female employees, then I would look at some of these programs like that. And executive coaching one-on-one is not in the budget for everybody. So this is kind of a nice alternative that provides a little bit deeper perspective.
Yes. I definitely think the Great Resignation is very interesting. And I do think that you are correct. Tongue-tied. You are correct. A lot of corporations are a little afraid of what people are going to do. And, are they going to stay here? What's going to happen? Why is everybody leaving? So you see a lot of people being very trying to be, I guess, more flexible now as opposed to where they were before. But I just think ultimately, you have to nurture people and you have to give them the space to grow. I've had the pleasure, and I always say it's a blessing to be able to manage young women. But I always told my team, I was like, look, if you can't find what you need here, let me help you. Like, we will find, if you see yourself outgrowing this or you don't want this for your future, please let me help you, because I will write letters of, a letter for you. I will, you can tell me you've got an interview. We will figure out the best fit for you. And it was so funny. They would always say, oh my God, I've never had a manager like you. I mean, I can tell you if I want to leave. I'm like, why would I hold you back? I said, because what is important for me? Yes, this company is important to me. I said, but you matter to me as a person, and your growth is number one for me as a manager. That's what I care about, not about thumbing you down and keeping you here with me.
And interestingly enough, it's treating an employee like that they'll probably actually stay with you. They will feel supported. And if it's that they're looking for development in a course or something, and you can help them find that, and you show them that you care about where they're going, that is what people are looking for right now.
Yeah. And that's what's most important. I'm like, oh my gosh, people, it's we have to care about people first. And that's the important thing. All right. So why don't you tell me what is coming up for W North? What can we be on the lookout for the rest of this year and into next year?
So we are so excited to be sharing that our conference is returning to Whistler. We have women from across North America who come to Whistler, which is a beautiful ski village just north of Vancouver, if you don't know where it is. And it's the Canadian Aspen. We gather there once a year, and we are returning there at late April. So I invite you all to join us. We also will continue to run our member meetups in 10 of our chapter cities. And I'll list them up very quickly. Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, Ottawa, Kitchener-Waterloo are Canadians, New York, San Francisco, Seattle, Austin are in the US, and then we're in Dublin and London in the UK. So we would be meeting in person and doing events in those cities, but we're also still online. So I'm running an energetic time management mastermind for working mothers, the second cohort, starting in late January. And it's a really powerful space for women to come together to learn about productivity hacks, to learn about cycle syncing, to learn and connect with other women who are doing all the things, working from home with kids through COVID. So that's just a little bit of what we have in store.
A little bit. That's a jam pack.
That's
jam
pack. A little taste.
Just a little taste. Let me ask you this question. So if someone's out there listening or watching us, and they're like, "Oh, you're not in my city. I'd like to have you in my city." Is there a process that they could look into to become one of your cities?
Yeah, there is. So on our website, if you go to chapter cities, our website is WNORTH If you go to chapter cities, you can take a look through all the cities, and then there's a little message at the bottom. If you want to start your own chapter, reach out to us. So we've just launched 5. So we are going to be kind of pacing ourselves a little, but towards the end of 2022, we'll be looking at where to grow next. So definitely.
Awesome. I love that. And could you tell everyone out there what is the membership structure? How can they become a member?
Yeah, so we actually have 2 membership levels. One is our digital membership that provides mostly online access to our events and workshops. That's about $200 US a year. Actually, when it's $150, I can't remember all these things. $150 US a year. And then our mastermind membership is a little bit more access to our in-person events. And those, like attending the conference, you have an opportunity. So you have to be a mastermind member to purchase a ticket to the conference, as well as our in-person member meetings. So that's taking your membership to the next level. And that is $400 US a year.
Mm-hmm. Very affordable though.
Totally. Yeah, my purpose with this was providing accessibility to women. There are, many programs similar to ours for very senior women, and they cost so much money. Mm-hmm. And for me, I wanted to bring executive coaching and leadership development to women who were at that mid-management level that were looking for inspiration to get to the next stage. We're not going to be able to beat that 8% of female CEOs in Fortune 500 companies without supporting women on their leadership journey.
Yes to all of that, girl. Awesome. Well, this has been lovely. Thank you so much for sharing all the information on W North. Everyone listening, watching, please head over to the website and check it out. I'll also drop the links in the show notes so you can go directly there from the show notes. So now, Heather, one last segment with you. This is a fun segment where we do 5 things So 5 things with Heather, we get to just dig a little bit deeper and get to know you on a more intimate level, I should say.
Awesome.
And I'd like to start with how do you start the day?
So I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I don't need an alarm clock for the most part. They are my alarm clock. And I start my day with some cuddles from those two and a big cup of coffee. And it is the morning routine. I don't have a meditation or anything like that time in the morning. However, what I have started to do is after I've dropped the kids off from work, I have returned to the gym. So I'm going to go to a fitness class 3 times a week.
Nice. I like it. What's one goal that you've set for yourself this year, business or personal?
I am empowering my team. And that's my goal, is empower my team to give myself a little bit more space. And over the pandemic, we worked, seemed to be sometimes 7 days a week, and it's not sustainable. So for me, I'm going to try and work less in 2022.
Yes, I love that. Well, speaking of working less, tell me something you enjoy doing on a day off.
So this is a big one. So I live in a ski town, and I have lived here for 17 years. And you would think everybody I talk to is like, oh, you must go skiing and snowboarding all the time. Well, I haven't had a season's pass. I have gone up on the mountain a couple of times a year, but I haven't had one in 10 years. And so this year I bought a season's pass, and I'm going to go snowboarding at least once a week, or skiing. Nice. I do both, maybe even twice a week.
I like it. Good. Okay. What is one thing that you do for self-care?
For self-care, that's a good question. Well, my workout for sure that I've just resumed. I drink a lot of water. That is something that I really am focusing on. And you asked me for one thing, but I gave you.
You can give me. Yeah, that's fine.
My workouts, my water, and a morning stretch.
Okay, I like it. And lastly, how do you end the day?
That's a good one. Nothing too crazy. I sometimes end the day at the same time my kids do, which is like 8:30 at night.
Nothing wrong with that.
So yeah, early to bed some nights, not so early to bed on other nights, but I'll pour a glass of wine, and right now I'm pouring a glass of wine and watching Ted Lasso.
Nice. We could all use those moments where we get to like go to bed early. Like I never realized until now, like how I miss like having a bedtime.
Totally.
I was like,
someone just needs to tell me to go to bed. Just tell me to go to bed and I will go.
Yes, because I just don't go to bed. I mean, even the nights where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to get into bed at 9. I'm just going to like watch TV until I fall asleep. And then like, I always get wrapped up into something else and start doing something else. And next thing I know, it's like 11:30. And I'm like, wait, how did we end up back here? How are we here again?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, Heather, thank you so much for dropping in and spending some time with me today. I love what you are doing and how you are helping women to elevate in leadership and to grow into leadership. And we are always here if you want to come back and share more news with us in the future.
Well, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share my vision. And maybe I think you're in Atlanta, right? So maybe we need to start a chapter there. So let's chat.
All right. Awesome. Stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back.